I'll turn this down a little bit. Let's see. There we go. All right. Hey guys. So same thing as before. Just here to talk. I'll probably do this for like 2 hours, I think, today. Maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending how I feel. But yeah, I'm just gonna chill out here, and hopefully this is like live. People show up. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Nicholas. Oh my gosh. Hey. Yeah. This is a nice calm Sunday, which is pretty good. So yep, just vibing. Just opinion on amateur authors, like just in general, like like what I think about amateur authors, because I don't, that's pretty broad. I work with a lot of amateur authors, so like maybe if that's what you mean. Some are really, really good, some are really, really not, and that's okay. I was really bad for a really, really long time, like terribly bad. Like again, one of these days I will just go out and like read my first manuscript, because again, I have just kept it this entire time, or at least, gosh, it was like half of my first manuscript, I think. My dad printed it out for me, and I think it ended up being like I think it was like 200-300 pages when it was like halfway done. So yeah, I guess like amateur authors they're fine. Because amateur pretty much is, you just don't get paid for it. I mean, like if you mean like a novice, right, like someone who's like just starting out, there've been a lot of really like great novice authors too, because some people are just, I think, innately like story brained, you know, so they can, it's pretty easy for them to make a story. But yeah, novice just means like, or like amateur, just you just don't make money off of it. So Corey Patrick, what's your opinions on remakes or reimaginings of movies? I generally, okay, the funny thing is, I think that so one of my guiding lights in writing, I have a few, but one of my guiding lights in writing, also if the background music is like too loud or the stream quality is not great, just let me know and I'll try to fix that. One of my guiding lights in writing is that literally anything can work. It's just all about execution. And I know that seems like ridiculous, but it literally, like, I believe it is. One of my favorite animes ever, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, is like about spoilers, I guess, for Brotherhood, for a show that's like 20 years old now. Oh gosh, makes me feel old. But that's just about like two dudes, one who lost his body to the ether for seeing the truth of humanity, and the other who lost his arm but then sacrificed his leg to try to fight God. Or no, try to fight the soul ripped out version of their dad who's trying to become God, so that, because by eating the son, like, it's stupid and it's ridiculous, but it all works because it's execution. And the reason I say that is that like remakes and reimaginings, I think, fall under the same category of just being like, if it's done well, then it's done well and it's good. Like literally anything can work. There's no concept too stupid. There's nothing that can like keep you from telling a good story. It's just like some stories are harder to tell, right? So like reimaginings or retellings are like fine with me. So for example, right, I think like the Avatar reimagining or like retelling, whatever you want to call it, the live action, is like fine with me. Because I think that there are things that happen in a visual medium that are different from a animated medium, right? And because of that, I think that there could be like new storytelling avenues for what appears on screen, for the narratives of the characters, simply because like changing mediums does change your story. Now, I don't think it's like innately going to be good, like it has to be good, or like it has to be bad. But I think, that kind of thing is, yeah, it's all based in the execution. Now, if we're talking like a legit reimagining of a story, then again, I think it just comes down to like what you try to do with it. Because, like Maleficent, which I guess technically is a reimagining, is like, I like Maleficent. I'm never gonna say it's like a fantastic movie, but they literally just took a character that was black and white evil and then just made her to be good, right? Or at least I think understandable. She's good. And so, you know, if that's your cup of tea. So like, again, like there's nothing, I think black or reimaginings and retellings, it's all about execution, and just some stories are harder to do than others. So, you know, sorry for like such a boring opinion on that, but that's, I think, my honest opinion as a professional. Like, I don't have a prescriptive belief about those types of things. So, ooh, Donald Deluxe with the 20. Hi Savage, besides me wanting you to play Metro, it would be fun if you covered how to break your character, like how the Shibuya arc changed Yuji Itadori. Okay, so I'm definitely going to talk about this because I do think this is interesting, but I want more specificity. So when you say break your character, do you mean like break your character in such a way like how, if you've seen, you know, Legend of Korra, like how Korra was like, had like a mental breakdown and was like like spiritually broken by the end of, oh gosh, season 3? Or do you mean like strip away your character's kind of like strengths so that it reveals kind of like who they truly are, right? Because I think there's like different ways I can read like break down a character, because this is interesting, but I think I just would need like a little bit more clarity on that. So when you type that out, I'll address that more. All right, music and quality is fine. Cool. Thanks, Brittany. Happy Sunday to you too, Max. Mr. Longshot, yeah, I guess that's very broad. I've always enjoyed writing, have an expansive imagination, but I've always been afraid to pursue it. Just pursue it, you know, just write. You don't have to show nobody. You don't have to show anybody else. Just write, you know, nothing's stopping you. Like I said, I was a terrible writer. Absolutely terrible. But you get better, so. Did you read Berserk? No, everyone tells me to read Berserk, and I know it's a foundational manga. And so eventually I will read Berserk, but I have not yet. Carmen, thanks for all your narrative breakdowns. They definitely helped me improve over the years. That's what I'm here for. Thank you. I'd like to hear that people find some value in like a random dude making videos on the internet. So, Corey Patrick. Oh, okay. You asked because you saw the Book of. What is? I do not know what the Book of Clarence is. So, what was your inspiration for A Heart of Woe? Do you have a process when plotting your novels? So again, another great question. My inspiration for A Heart of Woe, I've told this to a few people, especially like some clients, and I have a very specific answer for that. So, and this is going to sound like a roundabout kind of thing, but I promise it gets back to your question. So, and you get to see like the craziness of how my mind works. I was, oh gosh, I was at my dad's house. So like I had to have been, my parents are divorced. And so I was at his house. So probably like, I don't know, like 12, 13, maybe even younger. And I was playing Superman Returns on the PS2. And again, I promise this links back up to what you're saying. I was playing Superman Returns on the PS2, and I remember having to like beat somebody, some villain, because again, you're like in Metropolis and you're flying around and stuff like that. And there was one day I like picked up an SUV and like the final hit of the boss, so, like I literally like bashed him in the face by throwing an SUV at them. There's like a car I picked up off the street, and everyone was cheering, you know, and you saved the day. And I remember just thinking, again, I had played this game for dozens of hours at this point, but just thinking randomly at that time, oh, like I wonder, like everyone's cheering, but like obviously like I just like ruined that guy's car. Like that guy's SUV is just completely totaled. And I had like always remembered that like for a decade and more, because again, I'm like almost 30 now. And this happened when I was like maybe 12, 13. And basically I was, over the years, I became more and more interested in writing a story about how like a much more interesting, prominent character does something that is seen as like so beneath them, like their consideration. But it completely is the entire world of a lesser character, right? Because in my head, I'm thinking like, oh, if that was a guy whose SUV I, threw, and now he can't get to work, and now maybe he loses his job, and because he loses his job, he can't provide for his wife and his family, and so his marriage starts to falter, and then any insurance that he actually has because of that car being destroyed goes up, and so now he can't afford that. Maybe he loses his house, and maybe he has to start working like a lesser job, and because of that he turns to coping strategies like alcohol or going out and stuff like that, alienates himself from his kids, and all this comes from Superman throwing his car. But no one would know that because we don't focus on like the little things, like we'll see like Aang and Avatar like blast through people through like houses, and the cold cabbage vendor thing. And I wanted to write a story about a person who experiences their life being turned completely upside down because of the actions of another more important character. So basically, the main character of A Heart of Woe, everything that happens in his story is because of one chapter and like one thing that happens in my fourth book, and that's the whole thing. And for that main character of A Heart of Woe, his name is Rian. He believes it's like some kind of like huge massive conspiracy to like take down his family. His sister gets kidnapped, there's death, there's suicide, there's all sorts of horribleness, there's kidnapping, like I said. But in the grand scheme of things, it was like literally just someone who was just much bigger and more important than him doing something, and that was the cascade. Now, of course, Rian in Heart of Woe doesn't know this. He has no idea that he is such like a small piece of the puzzle. But I really wanted to explore that because the reader wouldn't know it either. The reader's under the like illusion, just as Rian is, that the POV character is, that everything is about him when really nothing is about him. He's the guy who lost his SUV. But I also really wanted to play with the idea while doing that of black and white morality, about how a lot of stories, maybe not so much anymore, but a lot of stories do kind of have this like dichotomy between like these people are good, these people are evil. That's more like classical storytelling. And along that road, in A Heart of Woe, Rian views his dad's side as, he hates them, they're weak, they're pathetic, and he views his mom's side as being like super strong, they're knights, they're really rich and powerful. He thinks criminals are all bad, he thinks like knights and good citizens are all good. And I really wanted to challenge that because I think the world, I have my undergrad and master's in psychology, and psychology is all about, at least in the practice, when you're with a client, like unconditional positive regard, because ultimately you're going to be working with a lot of like really strange people, and a lot of people that society might deem as evil, so like murderers, child molesters, arsonists, that kind of stuff, abusers. You work with those types of people in a clinical setting, and you have to look at them as if they're just as much human as anybody else you could work with. And of course there are, I would say, limitations to the level of like leeway that you would give someone, obviously, because they demonstrated because of their actions. But I think I was very interested in the concepts that I had been taught going through psychology about viewing people through a non-biased lens, and how everybody kind of has like different parts in them that are both good and bad. And so I wanted to write a story around that. But also framed within this idea of the whole like man who had his SUV broken down. Again, there's much more to it than just that. That was like my second book. Yeah, it was Heart of Woe was my second and third book. So that's kind of like the basis of how I wrote those. Okay. Dot of luck. To strip your character gets strengths to reveal who they are. I got my stepdad to watch Jujutsu Kaisen, and when Toto came to help Yuji, he asked, why didn't he ask what Mahito's type of woman is? I'm not sure about what that last part means. But I do have an entire, okay, if we're just talking about stripping down your character to reveal who they are, you might be in luck, because I have like literally an entire video on that with Homelander. So Donald, if you've seen The Boys at all, or even if you haven't seen The Boys, well, first of all, watch it because it's a great show. But if you haven't seen The Boys, I made a video that I, gosh, it was probably like, it was the end of season 3 maybe, where Homelander is, this is when he's dating Stormfront. And I do like a systematic breakdown of all the different pieces of his identity that get destroyed, because ultimately Stormfront is trying to build him back up in the image of what she wants like the Ubermensch to be, and so like all of his support systems get taken away. And I have a whole video on that if you want to like see it. But if you want to do something like really quick right now, because that's like a 30-minute video and it has like everything that you'll need. You literally just type in like Savage Books Homelander and you'll find it. I think it has like 500,000 views or something like that. But essentially what you need to do if you are looking to break down a character to like reveal their truest selves, and this goes with any character, guys, it's a character's truest self is always revealed through conflict, right? And conflict in a story is something that threatens the character in a way that keeps them from getting what they want, right? And a lot of the times that just comes upon like, you know, death. Like death keeps you from getting what you want as a character. But a lot more conflict is a lot more personal, right? And so this is like for each character, it's different. Like for example, like Zuko, he had everything stripped away from him, so he had to realize who he truly was, right? And it's about understanding like what's important to your character. For Zuko, it was, you know, he wanted the approval of his father. He wanted to be able to go back to his homeland and not be ashamed. He had a huge amount of identity simply being the prince of the Fire Nation, and like episode by episode, that was all taken away. And the beauty of Zuko is that at the end of season like 3, I think it's season 3, the show actually twists and he gets all those things back and he realizes that he's still not happy. And those things actually aren't what make him him, right? So the show takes everything away, because at one point he's like a fugitive from the Fire Nation. So he doesn't even have his Fire Nation identity. But then it gives it all back to him. He's able to go back home. He's able to like be with his family. He has like, for the most part, the appreciation of his father, and his friends, and he's still not happy. He's miserable. And so like, that's what you really need to do, I think, is to figure out like what makes your characters tick. What do they want? And then from there, you can go on and like see, okay, how do I take these things away? And how do I reveal what my character has left at like their very bones? What is something that is fundamental to them? That no matter what happens, this is the thing that's still driving them forward, right? And so that's how you like break down a character. For a lot of characters, they live to like for somebody else, right? So Yuji's breaking point was like the death of his friends, right? So he like saw people die, he saw like the villain succeed, and a lot of that came from him feeling that like it was his duty and his job to protect the people that he loved. And when that was taken away from him, he broke down. So I think it ultimately comes down to that. Again, writing is so complicated. But that's like the real basis. And again, I have like a whole video on it, but it's figuring out the pillars that hold up your character, the things that give them strength, and the taking of like knocking them down, taking away all that strength so that you're just left with the barest character. And I'm going to say that takes like a lot of introspection on your part as a writer, because some writers don't, I'm going to say, know their characters as well as they think they do. And because of that, they don't know how to interact with them on a personal level as far as investigating like their humanity. Because if you don't know your character, there's no possible way that you can like get like really deep with them on kind of like the intimate personal level that I think like great narratives kind of like depend on. So that's kind of like my answer to that. Yeah, thanks for the response. I'm going to show my stepdad. One Punch Man is a great show. I think anybody can get in One Punch Man because it's not about the punches. I mean, it is about the punches, but it's about so much more than just the punches. So, and NWM Productions. Do you prefer writing a serialized story or an anthology? I don't know. I guess technically by the work that I'm doing, an anthology. So for people who don't know, I am writing a series of books. I plan for there to be 5 mainline books. That may not happen. there may be more, but the 5 mainline books, and then in between each of those 5 mainline books is 4 to 5 spin-offs that are for the most part completely unrelated to each other. So if you do the math, that's 30 books basically, between like 25 and 30 books, just for this one series that I'm doing. I was able to write 5 of those books in like 4 years. I have significantly slowed down. I wrote between 2017 and 2021, I wrote 5 books. From 2021 to 2024, I have written 0 books. Okay, well, that's not true. I've written 660 pages of one book since 2021, and then 200 some odd pages of another book. So I'm working on books 6 and 7 right now. So I guess anthologies, because I love the idea of being able to tackle different subjects and stories, and even all of my books are like written in different genres, right? So like my first book is like typical high fantasy. My next 2 novellas, like my next 2 books, are like a kidnapping murder mystery noir set in Russia. Oh, well, my version of Russia. These are all in the same world, by the way, the same fantasy world. And then my 4th book is actually set in like Ireland. It's like a psychological thriller, kind of like crime drama. My 5th book is a like adventure fantasy with a dragon. It's very low fantasy though, except for the dragon. And then my 6th book, which is a sequel to the 5th one, is going to be like a fantasy epic, like, you know, like, again, 900 pages, a huge continental war, dragons and powers and all that kind of stuff. I want to write a book about this is gonna sound so weird. I have thoughts about like writing a book about priests about my world, about like a fat king who is trying to get fit in my world. I have like this whole 5-book series in my world about basically the Avengers, my world's version of the Avengers trying to stop the apocalypse. I have a story again in my world of a hive mind that's taking over my version of Asia, and agents from this this secret society called like Echelon have to go stop them. Like there is so much. I have a horror story that I want to tell in my world. I love horror. So I guess anthology. If I had to really be honest with myself, it would be anthology that I really like writing, because it's the freedom to just do whatever and nothing has to be connected. Now, again, all my stories are connected because I really like the ability to interweave things without being overt about it. Because I think like making a living manuscript that evolves continuously as people engage with it is really cool. So, but I think anthology overall. Johnny, shows like Gurren Lagann and Rise of TMNT, how do they seem to be dumb and fun, but are actually be rich with themes of growth without being deep like Avatar: The Last Airbender? Okay, so one easy way to think about that is that nothing is like Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I know that's like a cheap cop-out answer, but it's just one of the greatest shows of all time. So like it's hard to beat that show. But I think the core way to think about it is that just because something is like simple and looks childlike and non-complicated and dumb doesn't mean that it can't have really deep, like poignant themes, right? So Gurren Lagann. I haven't seen Rise of TMNT, but I know a lot about Gurren Lagann. The same person who did Kill la Kill. For those who don't know, which again, if you haven't seen Gurren Lagann or watched Gurren Lagann, it is a story about masculinity and coming of age as a man, from a boy to a man, and it's completely over the top, like literally I'm talking about like throwing galaxies at each other, like enemies throwing galaxies at each other by the end of the show. And it's completely unserious as far as the kind of like the internal, like the conflicts that are going on, like the actual events. But the entire thing is this really cool, honest exploration of what it means to come into your own as a man, and the ideals of maturity, and finding love as a man, and societal expectations as a man, at least traditionally, right? And I think no matter how dumb something is, if you are honest in the interrogations of the themes that you have chosen for your narrative, it can be really, really cool and compelling. I mean, there's tons of Pixar movies that are just like, you know, if you look at them at face value, are just like, they look like nonsense. But a lot of it, like, you know, like Inside Out, it's just a bunch of like plush toys and freaking emotions and whatnot. But it's like a really cool interrogation of like the inner turmoil that like even a kid could feel. So, and again, this is like high level writing. This is not like intro level writing that anybody can do, because of course the initial mindset is that like, oh yeah, I have to write like Breaking Bad or like The Wire if I want to make like commentary on like a social issue. And you don't. Social issues and the commentary thereof and like the interrogation of themes can come from literally anywhere. There's, you know, some of the like Adventure Time is one of the silliest looking fictions out there, but like deals incredibly with like loss and remorse, you know, Marceline and the Ice King, and you know, like Finn being the last human, and he even like interracial relationships, you know, like Jake and Lady Ranacorn, she's just Korean. There's like all stuff that you can like pack into storytelling. Now again, I think the biggest part of it is that not only do you have to be good at writing, you have to have like a real genuine connection to the thematic like source material, right? Like I would not venture into writing, you know, a story like Gurren Lagann about masculinity and coming of age, and you know, if you weren't actually interested in any of those things and you just thought it'd be something cool to write about, I would, because you're not ultimately, like that's what art is, and storytelling is simultaneously art, but it's also like lessons and philosophy. And if you don't have a true passion for those things or true intimacy, you're not gonna be able to tell stories like that. But I think ultimately that's how, you know, you can go about making stories like that. That seems silly, but if you've done the research in the topic, can be really deep. So hope I'm saying this right. Kiara, maybe, hopefully. I realize this is off topic, but from your usual wheelhouse, wanted to say that your voice is epic, good sir. Videos are always a joy, but I could also listen to you read a cereal box. It's very funny. I think the only reason that I sound like this is because my parents put me in, like, what is it called? Like speech meets from when I was like 4. I had to memorize speeches and then get up in front of like a whole congregation at my church, which is like hundreds of people, and just read. And for like 2-3 minutes at a time, I had to learn how to project. I had to learn how to like be in front of a ton of people and not have like my voice waver. And then luckily, of course, like I got lucky and just ended up with a semi-deep voice. I have a really good mic that helps a lot. So I would never have ever thought that I'd be doing this as a job, but thank you. I appreciate that. People appreciate it. Donald Lux, I really need to ask, what are your thoughts on Incredibles 2? It was a movie. I think that the only reason Incredibles 2 for me wasn't like a great experience is because Incredibles 1 again is like one of the greatest animated movies of all time. And I just thought, I don't know, I would have to watch it again. I just remember watching it and being like, you know, that was fine. It wasn't bad. Like if anybody else had made that movie, it'd probably be pretty good. But just the fact that like it was Pixar's follow-up, like what is it, like a near 20-year follow-up to, again, to me, the greatest Pixar movie of all time is, you know, it was a movie. Maybe I'll watch it again, because again, I did my video on Incredibles, like my throwback breakdown, which is one of my favorite videos of all time. It just turned into a documentary on Brad Bird, which is fine with me, because I still got to make that video. It was a direct response to Shafrillish Productions, which another great channel. And the fact that I got to make that documentary and it still do well. It's like, I think the second best performing video on my channel ever, maybe the third. I think the top is still like Joker and like John Wick, and then it's that one. And for that to just be a documentary on Brad Bird is really cool. So I'd have to watch it again, Donald Lux. So, but I remember not being super enthused, but more like, you know, this is a movie. Hype House Homie Wise Fleabag, the best show ever made. Wouldn't be able to tell you because I haven't seen it. I do need to see it. Again, there's so much content. There's so much content for me to catch up on. Yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen writes the villains how the protagonists are normally written. Very true. Max, have you ever heard of or watched Munshishi? I normally don't like episodic shows, but it's like a very unique premise with tons of great self-contained. I had, aside from you, I had another person recommend Mushishi to me, but I've not watched it. I'm currently getting through Undead Unluck. I really just probably should. I spent most of my free time in January. I've had like 4 or 5 days where I'm able to do nothing, and I spent most of that free time just playing Baldur's Gate because my girlfriend is not here. And I probably played 100 hours. No, not that much. I probably played like 70 or 80 hours since she's been gone, to catch up on things that I didn't do before. So I probably should have spent that time watching anime and different TV shows, but you know, Baldur's Gate. Thoughts on Takashi's use of allegory in Hunter x Hunter? I'm gonna be real with you. So this is Bones 48. Hunter x Hunter is a show that I almost don't even know if I can talk about it for less than 15 minutes, like, or 45 minutes. It is, to me, the most unique anime I've ever seen in my entire life. And I think it's like, I would say it's perfect in its imperfection, because there are definitely things that are so structurally not normal, and like atypical, and maybe things that could be streamlined, but like it is what it is. Now as far as like allegory, I would have to watch back specifically to like think about like allegorical use in Hunter x Hunter, because I just remember all of the overt stuff. I actually was in the middle of a Hunter x Hunter rewatch not too long ago, and I stopped like in the middle of the Chimera Ant arc, because of course it's like, you know, what is it, like 100 some odd episodes? Am I remember that correctly? But yeah, I would have to go back and look, but it's up there. It's probably really, anything that Hunter x Hunter does, it's usually successful. So I'm reading JC. Sure, I find your lack of faith disturbing. There you go. Nikki Blaze, how do you go about mentioning music, artist, song names, and writing in a way where you don't get sued? You don't have to worry about getting sued. I know this is like a worry for a lot of like novice authors and like starting out. I just talked about this to someone actually. The only real way, now of course, if you like, if you're going to like put something in like a story where like, you know, you just take a crap on like Lil Wayne, and you just like, you know, in your story like, yeah, Lil Wayne has like, I don't know, kicks babies and stuff like that. All right, maybe don't do that, you know, because then you're actually probably gonna, you know, if your work is big in any kind of way, you're probably gonna run into some legal trouble. But like, if you just want to mention people, that's fine. People exist, you know. They're not gonna sue you for mentioning their names, right? You can have stuff adjacent to things that already exist, right? I told somebody, you can't name a laser sword a lightsaber in your work, but you can have a laser sword in your work. Like, you can't be sued over the idea. You can't sue for like literally the concept of a laser sword, because laser swords are everywhere. You can have machines that transform into like humanoid things. Because like even though Transformers is the most famous, like they don't have like a monopoly on that. Now again, you can't call them Transformbos. You can't be, you know, overt with it, but you can have wands. Harry Potter doesn't own wands. You can have wizards. Lord of the Rings doesn't own wizards. You can name drop famous people in your work and not, you know, have them take all your money. I just don't think you can make up lies about those people, or like fantastical things, or like just straight, again, take like the name lightsaber and put it in your work, right? Now, people can sue you for anything, so if they really want to sue you, they'll sue you. Whether they'll win or not is a different story, but you know, I wouldn't worry like crazy too much about that. Max, please explore The Wire in a future video. I have been meaning to. So Max, I have watched The Wire. No, okay, well, I watched like a season and a half. I just couldn't get through season 2. And I know that's blasphemy, and I know that everyone's gonna be like, oh, whoever watched The Wire, it's gonna be like, The Wire is the best show ever, you know? There's literal jokes about it. I like season 1. It got really good in like the last like 3 episodes. I was kind of bored through like the first part of season 1. And then after Avon wasn't like a huge part of season 2, I just couldn't. Maybe I'll go back again one day. I still do have HBO, but like as of right now, it is not. It's not like high up on my list of things to do, but who knows? Yes, Tori. Yes, 70, 80 hours is crazy. I started, and you're also right. Yes, Hunter x Hunter is one of the best animes of all time. I started, okay, so when my girlfriend was here, I didn't want to play, and I basically stopped playing Baldur's Gate 3 because at that time, my computer from like 2019 wasn't able to play it. The third act, anyone who's played Baldur's Gate 3, the third act is like so intensively heavy on your PC that like I just couldn't do it. So I just stopped. I'm like, it's not that fun. And then there's a patch that came out that basically was like, oh yeah, it's playable now. But I knew that if I started playing it, I would never stop. My girlfriend went to the East Coast for Christmas, and I was like, this is my chance. So I played nonstop. Oh gosh, I started a new campaign. I finished my first campaign, started a new campaign, got to the third act, I think like 50 hours in, started a new campaign after that, and now I'm in the third act of that campaign, and I think I have like 40 hours. Yeah, so it's probably 100 hours. So yeah, I'm I don't have a problem. You have a problem. Have you read Watchmen? The surface level themes are obvious, but did you know that's also Alan Moore's response to Steve Ditko's philosophy? Every main Watchmen is based on characters made by Ditko. No, I did not know that. That's very interesting. I've not read Watchmen. I've only seen the movie, which I know a lot of fans have opinions about. And I have seen the HBO show, but I've not read it, which again, I know, a foundational graphic novel. I need to do it. There's tons of stuff that I need to catch up on, but I have not. But I'm really interested because again, everyone says it's like phenomenal. And I definitely, Alan Moore, like I did a video on Watchmen. Alan Moore is a very, very weird dude. So I would be interested, definitely. I'm a visual storyteller. Like I cannot do things. I'm not gonna say that. I struggle with things that I can't see, which is very funny because like, I read for a living. I hated reading because I couldn't see it. That's why I love visual things like TV storytelling, movies, video games, that kind of stuff. I was never really into music because I can't see music. I have to hear music, right? To this day, I struggle with like really getting into music, but like graphic novels, yeah, that's something up my alley. So, Kiera. Oh, also I realized I'm late, but loved your League cinematic breakdown. I only got into League of Legends because of Arcane. Do not play that game. So the lore is new to me, and you pointing out Kindred and all the scenes blew my mind. Yeah, I think again, I've told this to many people. League of Legends is the worst thing about League of Legends. Everything else about that like Riot, what Riot has been able to do with like the kind of like IP and the world and characters and the music is really cool. Like everything that they release, for the most part, it's just like right on the money. But the game, the game is soul crushing. Partly because the game itself needs improvement, but also because the other 50% is like the people who play it are terrible. And I recognize, yes, I play League of Legends, so I am therefore terrible. But you know, it is a paradoxical experience, I'll say, that, you know, the cinematics, the trailers, the music, everything is just so good, and the source material that it comes from is just so bad. So but I'm glad you enjoyed it, because that League cinematic was really, really cool. I remember it was like 2021, I think, when The Call came out, which was the League cinematic for, I think, season 13, I believe. It was right around like December, because I was up in like Arrowhead in the winter doing a snowboarding trip. And that hurt a lot. Snowboarding hurts. I was up there and I was watching The Call over and over and over again. And I was like, I really want to do a video on this, and I never did. So I made sure to do a video now. Favorite video essay you have ever watched this year? Okay, so Nicholas Uriel novel. I haven't watched a video essay this year. Like, you know, it's January, so you know that's to be expected. But like ever, that's hard. So I think my favorite video essay creator of all time is Captain Christian, I believe, and I'm going to be so embarrassed if it's not actually, but I'm almost positive it's. I'm not going to play League of Legends. It's Captain Christian. He makes video essay. You know, I will just look it up. I'll just look it up right now, because let me see. I'm literally gonna be that guy. Yes, it's Captain Christian. So he is, to me, the master of visual and informative storytelling. I can't even pick out like a specific video essay that he's done that I really like, but they're just all phenomenal. If you've never seen Captain Christian, Google it, look it up on YouTube. It's Christian with a K. They are gorgeous. He did one on, like, just off the top of my head, he did one on like the sound design of Studio Ghibli movies. I think it was specifically Howl's Moving Castle, and it was phenomenal. He did one on oh gosh, The Shining. That was really, really cool. Unfortunately, YouTube is not his full-time job, so like he uploads maybe like once a year. So like, you know, there's that. I think Nakey Jakey makes really good video essays on video games. I am, as you can tell, a huge video game lover. You know, he makes really, really good stuff. It has a lot of really, really good insight. Gosh, like, as far as like narrative based, there was one video essay that I saw, it was years ago, that talked about Harry Potter, and I was so angry. Like, I don't think I've remembered this to this day, and I don't think I've ever been as angry, or not angry, but like disappointed that I didn't think of this first, because it's such a good point. It was a Harry Potter video essay talking about how J.K. Rowling fundamentally misunderstood how to write conflict when it came to making her villains as uniquely terrifying as they could be. And the point of the video, which again, as an editor, I'm like, how did I not make a video on this, was that by the end of the series, the Death Eaters and Voldemort were too close in power. And the threat of Voldemort was more theoretical and people being told to be scared of Voldemort, right? Because like, if you think about it, through like the whole series, especially in the beginning, whether it's book or like a movie, like Voldemort is like to the point of being scary that they don't want to like say his name. And you're like, oh my gosh, you know, like what is like the big deal with this guy? And then you see him and he's very strong. You know, Dumbledore's like the only person that even like comes close to being at Voldemort's level. But because Voldemort and Dumbledore are kind of like synonymous with their power, it makes a feeling like, oh, as long as, you know, there are people around that are like him. And the video essay was saying that like the reason Voldemort and the Death Eaters are so close is because they all have access to the 3 unforgivable curses. So it's Crucio, Imperio, and then Avada Kedavra, right? And this video essay was saying that Voldemort should have at least been the only person to have access to the Killing Curse. And if Voldemort was the only person in that entire series that could kill people on command, that would have given like true validity to the terror that everybody felt around him, right? Because it's like literally just a kill button. And if he could use, unless if he went further, like he could use all 3 of the unforgivable curses, then it would be like, oh, this is why this guy is that terrifying. But instead you have this like a bigger kind of like, I'm not even gonna say flaw, but it's like a thing in the storytelling where like you have like the villains only ever using Avada Kedavra because like they don't need to do anything else, and it's just it's a magical gun. Right? Like everybody uses it like all the time, all the villains. And it kind of like loses its, you know, potency when you just have everybody using it. So it's a very long roundabout answer to your question. Like those are like my favorite video essays. It honestly might have been JXE that that made that video. I do not know, but that kind of stuff. Easy essay idea, Kurosawa storytelling. Yeah, it is a good idea. I would have to watch. I've seen Kurosawa films. But I need to probably watch more. Donald Deluxe, can you do more videos on the Shibuya incident arc? You know what? If people are willing, I did not expect that Gojo video to do as well as it did. My anime videos typically don't do like spectacularly, and this one didn't like, you know, go viral or anything, but it got like 200,000 views. And I am like, you know, I'll make any excuse to make anime content. So yeah, I could probably do some more Shibuya content in the future. You know, because that seems fun. What's your favorite of your own videos you've ever made? That's hard. Oh my gosh, there's so many. There's a few that instantly come to mind. So I've talked about this before. But I really like that I was finally able to make my Devil Wears Prada video. That was a video, again, I had wanted to make for like years, and I was like, I'm never gonna be able to make this video. This is no one's gonna watch this video. And then like a lot of people watched that video, so that was really fun. I had been wanting to make that Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island video for years, like since the conception of my channel. And that was my first throwback breakdown that like started that whole series. And I remember like having it taken down so many times. You guys have no idea how many times like I almost couldn't publish videos, or like almost gave up on some. It took like days for me to get that video out, and I was rewarded because that got like 200-some thousand views for my first ever throwback breakdown. You know, my video on the last Star Wars movie was really big because that was my first big like big brand deal attached to that video, and at first it did terribly, and I needed that money. Like I wasn't depending on that money for that video to do well to be able to move, but like I really needed that video to do well, and I was like really bummed around like Christmas time because that video wasn't doing well. But like I trusted my YouTube gut. I'm like, if I make a 40-minute video on Star Wars, I think it's gonna do okay, and I think I'm gonna get views. And I really enjoyed making that video, by the way. It wasn't just for the money. But then it did really well, and I made a lot of money off of that video, which is really cool. So yeah, those, and again, like the Incredibles video, Throwback Breakdown is like my favorite series that I've done. I think I've done like 4 or 5, and I do want to do more. So like all of those, I really like my video on Soul. It was just really personal to me, and I really like the idea of like, you know, that Pixar movie and being able to talk about it. My Avatar world building video is one of my favorite too. I really like that one because I love Avatar, and anytime I get to talk about it, I always have fun doing my job. So there's a lot, but those are, I can't even like order them, but they're very much like, I think in that kind of like list of videos that I like. Leah Ann Johnson, any thoughts on the Wheel of Time TV show? Haven't seen it. I don't even know if it's out. If it is out, I don't know about it. So I can't answer that. Let me see. So D1, have you thought about doing a video essay on The Wire, Westworld, or Succession? I've done a Succession video. Didn't do well. I have not seen Westworld or read Westworld. No, I have seen Westworld, just not all of it. So maybe it's just not very popular. So, and then The Wire, I have seen The Wire, and at some point we'll probably make a video on The Wire at some point. No promises. It will be a fun video to do a video on Mahito and Sukuna. Yes, Sukuna is super interesting. I would really like to do a video on Sukuna. So that might be coming in the future. I very much like love that he's not going the Kurama route for people who have read Naruto, of being kind of like taking Yuji under his wing as like a nice evil guy. He just seems to be evil. And I kind of really like that. Constantly keeps me on my toes, because a lot of these shows, you get like the humanization of the villain that is close to the main characters, but not this one. So that's really nice. Shipping Sus Lord, unrelated, but you have an epic voice. I definitely pay for an audiobook narrated by you. Look, I've been thinking about getting into voice acting, or at least like narration. So I guess actually I forget now. The real reason, and just so people understand, this is, I'm not gonna say this is like a radio voice, but like there is a very specific way, and it's subconscious now. I can't even turn it off. I couldn't talk differently now if I wanted to, but I will talk differently when I get off camera, right? Because there's just like a way. I've been doing this for 5 years, and it's almost like when you're around people who speak the same way, or like your brain triggers into speaking like that. But this is like a voice that is very close to the one I do, but is also distinctly different. But I say all this because I purposely trained myself to be able to speak in a way that is pleasing to my ear, because I remember my initial thing was I did want to do audiobooks. I wanted to narrate my own books. That's why actually I wrote my 4th book, and then wanted to put that on my YouTube channel so people could listen to me doing it. But I hated the sound of my own voice. And I told myself, if I'm ever going to be doing things, and this is like the beginning of the channel, right? Before I had any videos. And I told myself, if I'm ever going to like actually make a YouTube channel and I have to like edit my own stuff, because I was doing everything by myself at first, I said, I'm going to have to make my voice sound in a way where I like it. So I like purposefully sat down and trained myself on how to talk correctly. Because you can go back to those first videos. I sound completely different. I didn't know how to give a lower register. I didn't know how to not breathe every time I speak. I would be really breathy in the mic. I was wavery, right? Like, it's a lot of stuff that's innate to me now. But like back then, I did not sound like this. So I do appreciate when people tell me that I sound good, because again, to me, it's just normal. But I've always wanted to make sure that I had a good mic. I used to do all my sound design and editing myself. And I still do, to like an effect. But yeah, I do want to do voice work because I think I'd be good at it. You know, I've read a lot of stuff, and I seem to, you know, have cultivated at least enough of a following that people seem to like how I talk. So, but thank you. Yeah, I would not be opposed to doing like audiobooks and stuff. How do you rate Cowboy Bebop and Evangelion compared to how the masses do? Well, see, that's a tough question for me because I haven't seen them. When you guys like, I say that I haven't, like, there's a ton of media that I have to catch up on. I'm not joking. Like, it is a lot of foundational like storytelling that I just have not seen. And there's a lot of foundational storytelling that I have seen. And I wish, it just sucks that, like, you know, there's 300,000 people who are watching my channel and all of them have seen different pieces of kind of like the grand ethos of storytelling, and I haven't. I'm just one guy, so I have not seen them, so I can't answer that. I'm sorry. It's midnight here, but I hope you guys have fun. Well, thank you. Yes. Speaking of Sukuna, from M3D, I want to know your take on writing pure evil villains. How do you use them to enhance the story? So funny enough, I think, oh gosh, it's Hella Future Me, I think did a video on this recently. I think it was like in defense of pure evil villains. Go check out his video. He's great. But if you want my take on it, again, I can't get like, this is one of those things where I could talk for like an hour. If you want to know, okay, so pure evil villains, I think the Joker is like a great example of this. So like the Joker in The Dark Knight, for those of you who've seen The Dark Knight, is it meant to be redeemable or even understandable or likable? I think people like him because of how effective he is. The Joker is pure evil, like literally has no human identity. You only see him outside of his like evil makeup like once, I think, and that's when he's shooting a police officer, the commissioner. He shoots Gordon and doesn't have makeup on. But he's pure evil, right? Like a Night King kind of like lich kind of like level pure evil. And characters like that are, I think, meant to be handled in a way that is different from characters that represent like real people or allegories for like real people, right? Because a lot of villains are humans, and these humans represent people who have like wants and desires and beliefs and cares, right? So like Emperor and Darth Vader is also a great example, right? So the Emperor was pure evil, whereas Darth Vader was like gray, right? Darth Vader cared about his family. That was the whole reason he like became what he became, right? He cared about Padme. We've never seen the Emperor care literally about anything except himself. And I think it's all about understanding, if you're going to use a character that's pure evil like a villain, they have to be the embodiment of all the things. They have to be almost like a cautionary tale of all the things that like your character, that are your good characters, or like, you know, your flawed characters, all the things that they could possibly end up being, right? Because if you don't use pure evil characters well, if you try to like couch them in being relatable and understandable, then you get something like, you know, Steppenwolf in the first Justice League movie, where like he's just simple and like not interesting. But I think at that point, you know, if you're making a pure evil character, the conflict has to be the internal conflict of your character that is being like drawn to evil, right? Because usually that's the whole thing, is that like someone is being drawn to evil. Like, you know, Ozai in Avatar: The Last Airbender was pure evil, and Zuko was drawn to Ozai because he needed his father's approval, and then once again realized that like, oh, I don't actually need my father's approval. That's how I think good pure evil characters are situated, is that someone somewhere is drawn to them, and then the conflict is like, will that character give in? That's the whole thing with Batman too, right? So like the Joker is trying to draw Batman to giving up his one rule, like to not having to being just as barbaric as he was, and Batman resisted, right? So maybe that's like, I think the core of it is that if your evil character is just evil and then your good character is just good, and they both represent two sides just clashing, that I don't necessarily think that's very interesting, because like, I mean, it could be, you know, any story is based on execution. But I think more about it is like how that evil character, if they are pure evil, what they represent, and then how the character that we're viewing from the perspective is in relation to that, if they're being drawn to it, the battles that they're, you know, going towards. You know, like Wu Ya, and not to have like a deep cut, but Wu Ya in like Shaolin Showdown was pure evil, I'm pretty sure. And like Raimundo was drawn towards her side. Right, so it's that kind of thing. It's using that type of character to make a commentary on like the internal struggle of your POV character, like your main characters, rather than just having them be the evil. Because like Steppenwolf in like Justice League, he wasn't like drawing anyone to a side. He was just evil. He was just mean. But then in the Snyder cut, he wasn't just evil and mean, right? It was Darkseid who was like the pure evil one. And then Steppenwolf was the guy who's like, I just want to go home. I don't even want to be here anymore. I made a video on that too. So I think that's the best way I could do that without going into like an in-depth, another hour-long conversation about it. So has Hazbin Hotel appeared on your radar, kind of like Foster Stone for Imaginary Friends, but in Hell and a musical? I have heard about it. My girlfriend has told me about it very briefly, and I've seen a whole bunch of different stuff. But I have not seen it myself. So if it, since it's free and I love animation and I love Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, I will have to check it out because, more media for me to consume, the never ending list. Have you ever considered making an Iron Giant throwback breakdown? Yes, NWM Productions. I did consider it, but the reason I think I'm not going to is because I mean I may, but I kind of talked about the Iron Giant in a meaningful way in my Brad Bird video on Incredibles, because he directed it, I'm pretty sure, and I don't know if there's like enough material for like a 20 some odd minute video. There might be, who knows. I never thought I would actually find all the evidence that I did for that Sinbad video, and that was like one of my more controversial videos ever. Again, one of my favorite ones because I've been wanting to make Sinbad forever, and that Ares video. But who knows? I may make a throwback breakdown on that because I really like that movie. Fun fact: one of my characters is their last name is Hagar, so it's House Hagar. And a lot of people who read the book think that I named them after the biblical character of Hagar. But I didn't. It was named after Hogarth, who was a character from the Iron Giant. I believe that was like the kid. His name was Hogarth. And I always thought that was like a cool name. And I named like a really big, powerful house Hagar, because I'm like, I can't just name him Hogarth. Because that'd be too weird, and I decided on Hagar instead. So it's not biblical, it's from the Iron Giant. So fun fact, a little like Savage Books trivia if you read the books at all. Still waiting on the day you read Berserk. You will do a breakdown on something, and if you ever read it, too good to not want to talk about. Yeah, everybody talks about Berserk. So at some point I will read it. Andrew C. Hey man, just wanted to say I love your channel. It's pretty inspiring and I've involved my writing. I gotta go for schooling, but have you ever heard of Schnee? Yes, I have. So Schnee is really well known, for people who don't know, on YouTube for arcane videos, like a lot of arcane videos, and he does really good work. I have seen some Schnee videos, and I'd love to be able to do co-ops with other YouTubers. I've spoken to some other YouTubers in the past, and co-op work a lot of the times, even if it's simple, does take a bit more effort, like a fair amount more effort than just like regular videos, because you have to go back and forth. But like Johnny Two Cellos and Hello Future Me and The Closer Look and other people, I've been in contact with them. And they're all great guys. So yeah, I would do collabs and stuff like that. Let's see. Socialist Joker and A Harley Quinn is by far my favorite rendition of the Joker. Yes. Where's my electric car, Bruce, is an all-time great line. The Joker is more of an idea than an actual person. Yes, 100%. Like he's never, I think in no iteration, maybe aside from Harley Quinn, when he has like, his Latina family, is he meant to be perceived as like a real person. He is a force of nature in every single like method. Hogarth Hughes, there we go. Thank you. You may have touched on this at a time I missed, but what is compelling you to do live streams as of late. So I wanted to do live streams because the whole point of me doing the channel in the first place was for me to be able to, I think, talk about writing and teach writing and storytelling and how to think about storytelling in a way that provided education that like actually mattered and meant something without it like costing a bunch of money. Because I paid a bunch of money for my education, and I'm like, nobody should have to do this. People should be able to get this knowledge for free. And since then, which is like 5 years ago, I started in 2018. So like in October of this year, it'll be 6 years, which is crazy to think about. I've made like over 100 videos, and in making over 100 videos, I never want to repeat myself. I never want to like just do content for content's sake. I always want to like do content because it's something like new that people can learn from, to keep people like tuning in. And it got to a point where I've covered so many topics, like, because you know, you do this for 5 years straight, you're making multiple videos every month. There's only so much you could talk about. And I have always had, I think, like the most in-depth conversations directly with clients talking about stuff. Because if I'm gonna be honest, like videos are very general. Like there's it's a lot of like, I'm not gonna say surface level stuff, but I can't talk about a lot of the nuance because like everything has to be formatted not only for information but entertainment. That's the thing with YouTube, is that you have to make things entertaining. You have to choose topics that are entertaining. I have to choose topics that I can like, you know, find clips for, or other stuff, right? It's YouTube is specified not for education but for money making. I wish it wasn't. It's not my choice, but like YouTube, if I didn't make videos that get clicks and they YouTube money, I wouldn't get like my videos recommended, right? So this all comes to me thinking like, oh, if I want to start like actually, if I want to consistently be giving help to people, and I've almost exhausted all of the new like video topics that I can do, and people have really liked talking to me, just like, you know, clients. And again, anyone here who wants to, you can find a link to my, I believe, to my website, like on the about page, if you want to like book a session with me. People apparently like to do that. I've gotten a lot of clients to do that. And I'm like, yeah, let's do a live stream, because like it's almost as if you're in a session with me. You can ask questions, you can get my opinions on stuff, we can talk about the nitty gritty. I don't have to make it super entertaining for, you know, like clicks or whatnot. It's just like we're just talking, and that's cool. And like we can talk about things that I would never be able to go to like in a video. So that's why I want to do live streams, is because it allows for a much more one-to-one interaction. I have always wanted to do that, like from the get-go of me doing YouTube, is like, yeah, I want to help people learn about writing. I want to talk about writing. I want to talk about storytelling, because I think it's ultimately it's how we just like as a people communicate. We tell stories to each other about our lives, about our experiences, and that's really cool. And the better people get at it, you know, the better I think that they're able to convey themselves to others, and the more we understand each other. So I think live streams are kind of like one of the, and I've gotten to live streams more as I've gotten older. I think it's just really cool. The idea, it's super foreign to me that someone would ever not only sit down to just watch a person talk about something else, but then like pay money to do that. Because like in my mind, it's just like, why would it? But then I find myself doing that exact same thing when I listen to live streamers. But then in my head, I'm like, no one would ever do that for me. But very clearly people do. So that's why it's taken me so long, but I want to do it like, you know, consistently. So if I'm gonna try, you know, every Sunday, but if anything, I'll just do more, because, you know, it's really cool. It's fun. It's very personal. And I think this is honestly like, it's a lot easier for me to do this than like make a whole video. Cause like, I don't think I've told you guys about the video editing process, but just like making a video is like an endeavor. It's for those of you who aren't on YouTube, this is like a job. It's not like all fun and games. So, keep hearing Berserk. Johnny, keep hearing Berserk. Sorry to throw another thing at you, but going to guys, Devilman was a huge influence on Berserk. Devilman also influenced Evangelion. Not trying to make you read more, just saying. So I've seen Devilman Crybaby. I don't know if that's gonna help at all. Which, you know, was cool in its own way. So maybe like that is, I think, a partial substitute. I do need to watch Devilman though. I know it's very influential. So, all right. Let's see. Can you recommend any good places for writing communities or how to get into contact with editors, writers? I mean, not to plug my own stuff, but okay. Well, first of all, so I have my own writing community in a Discord. So if you go on the Patreon, I think it's like at the $10 tier, like $10 a month, you get access to the Patreon, you get beta readers, people are there. They're really cool. When I started out, I was on Reddit, like a lot of Reddit people on Reddit actually asked me to make a YouTube channel. But you know, there's like r/fantasy writers. I don't know what you're specifically writing, but there's like a ton of different writing communities. There's r/destructive readers. I think there's like r/beta readers. There's r/trading readers, I think, where people like give each other material to go back and forth. And then I think a bunch of the other big YouTubers also have Discords. So like Hello Future Me and I know definitely The Closer Look has a Discord because I'm a part of it. So they also have stuff and writing communities. As far as like getting into contact with editors, I mean, like that would be like, I guess, a Google search. I'm an editor, so if you want stuff, you can always, you know, like send it my way if you look at my website. But yeah, I think those would be like my best recommendations. It's like look on Reddit for like the different, anything that pertains to you, the subreddit that like has your kind of like genre or niche in it. That can be really good. And again, your mileage may vary because some people on Reddit are very dumb. You know, Redditors, me included, are very dumb. But I also have, again, my own Discord if you want to do that. So just go to Patreon and you'll get the link for it. Trying to do what actors do, make as many projects and as much as you can till you get the few money and attention that you get to make the videos you want to make without worrying about views. Yes, exactly. That's like, I was there. And then YouTube decided to like stop paying its creators. So I'm starting to get back there, but very much it's the dream for any YouTuber is to just be so self-sufficient that you can do whatever you want. Like you can just make whatever content you want and you have that dedicated fan base. Now, some people have the luxury, I'm not even gonna say the luxury, it is, they have found a community that has the generosity of being able to work through like other mediums outside of like just YouTube to be able to like make things work, right? So Tim, the guy who runs Hello Future Me, I've, you know, talked about him a lot today. But he has a great Patreon following. And because of Patreon, basically he doesn't have to like worry about views. I talked to him, which is like really cool for me because he was one of the people that inspired me to get into writing. Because at the time when I think I started YouTube, he had like 500,000 subs and he's crossed over 1 million now. Tim is really cool. And I will never forget one of the things he told me. Because his views have never been like fantastic after he's a big Avatar: The Last Airbender creator. And of course, like now he's probably going to be feasting on this new series. His channel's going to do really well, which is like really cool for him. Because he's like the Avatar creator on the platform as far as I know. But he told me it is far easier to create content for 1,000 people than 100,000 people. And he has 1,000 people on his Patreon. Like roughly, right? Around like 1,000 people on his Patreon. And I think, right? Because that was like the number he gave me. And it made so much sense because, right, like if every person gives $2, right? You know, that's $2,000 a month that he gets guaranteed. And all he has to do is make videos for them. And then whatever he makes on YouTube is like extra, right? Let's just say each person on his Patreon gets like, you know, $4, right? That's $4,000 every month guaranteed for an audience of 1,000 people. You know, my worst videos get 15,000 views. And I'll lose money on those videos. So that's like, I think the goal of any creator is to get to the point where you're like self-sufficient. And sadly, YouTube just like in and of itself isn't the best medium for that anymore. You have to go like outside YouTube, right? Like, you know, I can't I can't depend on my job to pay me. I have to, like, you know, I've always liked being an editor, but like I've always needed to be an editor. I've never been able to support like myself just off YouTube. And you would think with like nearly 1/3 of a million subscribers, I would be able to. But like I can't, and I've never been able to. I've always needed a second job doing YouTube. Maybe at some point I will. I know and there are creators who can, don't get me wrong. But that's not me. So at some point I will I think be in a position to just do what I want to do. I have the support of people. But yeah, like that was, and ultimately, again, that's my ultimate goal. I think even with becoming more personable and just like one-on-one with people, is that like I'd rather just make content for 1,000 people and have like guaranteed income to be able to pursue my passions and be able to give back to them in the way they want, rather than making videos for 100,000 people and not know what they want and never have contact with them, right? So that's why, again, to get back to the whole live streaming thing, that's why I'm doing live streaming. And then that's like where I want to be, where all creators want to be. So, you ever watched The Bear season 2, episode 6? Has some great scenes. I've not, but I have heard things about The Bear. I don't know what I heard about The Bear, but I've heard good things, I think, about The Bear. So, yeah. CJ the X, oh my gosh. So CJ is very special in my heart. And I don't even know if he knows or they know. I don't want to misgender you. I have no idea. But CJ, I'm gonna talk specifically to you because I remember working with you and then being like, dang, they're like really passionate, really smart, and they have like so much energy. And then I was on YouTube with my cousin, and my cousin lives in Texas, and she was like, oh, there's this creator I want to tell you about. I absolutely love their work. They made like a 45 video on Cat from Victorious. And I was like, oh, I love, you know, like people taking deep dives into nonsense, you know, stuff from our childhoods. I have an entire series on that called Throwback Breakdown. Let me do that. And my cousin pulls up this creator. In the video, again, it's like, I'm gonna say 45 minutes. Maybe it's like longer, like an hour or something ridiculous. And I was watching it, and it was like the most enthralling, kind of like crackhead video of just like this in-depth dive into Cat from Victorious, which is Ariana Grande, obviously. And I was like, why is this one? I'm like on the edge of my seat watching this entire thing, and it is so cool. But also, why do I feel like I know this person? And this is like, you know, like a creator with like, I think like 200,000 views or 200,000 subs. And then I realize, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my client. This is the guy I was working with. And it was like the most surreal moment. And so I think I sent you an email literally that night that I had saw your video, and then you had been doing stuff. And so I hope you're doing well. You know, that's really cool that, because I have not heard, I don't think we've talked to each other like literally since then. But no, yeah, if your channel is doing really well, I that brings like joy to my heart, because I always want to see people who, not even that I work with, but just in general, do well. And like, you make fantastic content. I am in awe of the way that you are able to write your scripts and deliver them, because I think there is nothing like being able to write interestingly, and I don't think there's a single person on the platform who writes like you or delivers content like you. So yeah, you keep doing it. But also, CJ is right. Tell people they got to get out the casino all ahead, because if you depend on YouTube and algorithm success, it eats you. House always wins. Migrating, converting financially is essential. Yes, like I was super lucky during COVID. My channel exploded during COVID. I went from like 100-something thousand to like 300,000, right? And I was able to basically make enough to sustain myself. But like now I'm gonna, and I have to get back on it, but like doing TikToks and Patreon and like doing stuff like this, like streams, and having my, you know, my other job editing, you know, and then eventually like choosing to write and sell my books and stuff like that. You know, it's it is necessary. I mean, again, unless you're like super huge and you're just like a big you know, social media, and you know, bigger than, like much bigger than me, like we're talking like millions, then you can be like a one platform pony, right? But yeah, you kind of have to move off that kind of stuff eventually and multitask. And no one tells you that. You think, oh, I'm putting in so much work doing this one thing, but like, you know, it's very much a marathon when it constantly feels like you're also sprinting. So yeah, I'd be down to live stream together sometime. I have no idea how to do that, but I'd be down. I think I'll go for like another 9 or so minutes. I'm getting kind of hungry, so yeah, let me read through some more. Let me see. I'll go up because the comments have like, I think like thankfully slowed down. There's like a lot here. Let's see. Nikki Blaze, please explore Kratos as a character in future videos. Yeah, yes, I do. I want to. There is so much content for Kratos. So I am playing through some of the, well, I want to, some of like the best video games of all time with my girlfriend because she's getting into video games and she is a writer herself and is really big into just like, you know, narrative storytelling, because a lot of video games don't have that. I understand that. And so I'm really big into, well, I'm big into every video game. But I really am trying to, like, the artistic narrative style games I really want to show her. So we were playing through like Mass Effect, and for those who know Mass Effect, it's like it's the, aside from like, you know, Knights of the Old Republic type stuff, it's like one of the greatest trilogies ever made. And my problem is I really want to play God of War and God of War Ragnarok with her. The issue is that I know God of War and Ragnarok can be played just as those two games and you'll get a phenomenal experience from it. Because they're just that, like, they're masterpieces. But I think there is something distinctly different about the experience with Kratos if you have played the other games first. The issue is that God of War 1, 2, and 3 are not narratively strong. They are murder fests where you just like completely decimate droves and droves of people. And I don't think she would enjoy them, but I think she would really, really like the latter two games, God of War and Ragnarok, more if she saw the transformation of Kratos. Like, she understood how far this dude had come. So it's like a real battle in my mind, because like the next game we're gonna play is either Baldur's Gate 3, which is phenomenal narrative writing, or The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2, which again, phenomenal narrative writing, like a real just like tearjerker. But again, God of War and Ragnarok are phenomenal landmark games. At some point we might do like Red Dead and Red Dead Redemption 2. I mean, there's just like a lot of really cool stories out there in video games. But to specifically get to your point, Kratos is a hugely impactful character. For how even me growing up, I remember getting God of War 3 back in like 10th grade, I think, and being with that character for like years and years. So hugely impactful character, and I do want to like do a breakdown of Kratos at some point. But again, I know there's already like phenomenal videos breaking down God of War. Like, there's literally a video called like Unpacking God of War. I think I talked about this on my last stream. That's like a 45-minute video. which is phenomenally edited. Go check out that creator. I cannot remember the name of the channel, but the video is called like Unpacking God of War, and it's really, really, really good. So, I'll be on for like a little bit longer, so we'll see, Deb. No, Max. So I've not checked out Valhalla. I need to. It's like free, I'm pretty sure, right? Like I don't think it costs anything. I've literally just been too busy playing Baldur's Gate 3. And again, like I have like burritos. I brought like breakfast burritos. I spent $25 on breakfast burritos that are probably gonna feed me for like the next 2 or 3 meals because they're so big. I might just like grab one of those, and then just start playing more Baldur's Gate 3. Because I feel like I need to finish these games and get it out of my system before my girlfriend comes back. Because it is a near necessity that those games be done before I get myself in trouble. So she realized Caden is the word. You tell me, Brittany. Knights of the Old Republic is awesome, delicious world building. Writing. Yeah, so like I'm gonna be honest, I played Knights of the Old Republic when I was young, to the point where I barely remember almost anything about it because it was my stepbrothers who played it, and I remember watching them and just being like, oh my gosh, this looks so cool, because I'm a big Star Wars fan, and by big I mean big for a regular person. I know nothing of Star Wars compared to the actual Star Wars people, like the people who are like, oh yeah, I've read the novels and the extended universe and the comics, and I know like the secret, you know, this, that, and this. I'm a big Star Wars fan insofar as like, oh yeah, I like Star Wars and I know like a decent amount of regular person knowledge of it. But it was really cool. So Knights of the Old Republic, I do need to give it another try. I want to say they were like, are they like remaking them or something? I don't know, but yeah, they're very cool. And Max, yes, the old God of War are, again, I like them. Don't get me wrong. I think they're some of the best hack and slash games ever. I just think that that's not necessarily her cup of tea. That's true. I have thought about that. So show her recapping like the older God of Wars, that would save hours. But I also just think that like watching, because it's like what was 7 hours of cutscenes between those 3 games. I don't know if we're gonna like sit for like like watching like, that's like a whole series of television, watching those cutscenes. So I don't know if we're, you know, gonna do that, but we'll see. I think it is better than like playing the whole game, like, because each one's 24 hours, so it's 72 hours of God of War. So we'll see, like, you know, whatever makes things work. Let's see. Oh, it's free. It addresses a lot of stuff. Okay, yeah, for Valhalla, yeah. I've seen the and I put in a video actually, Kratos talking to his younger self, and I'm really interested in that because I think he's one of the most, so it's like him, like John Marston, oh gosh, like I'm blanking on the man's name from Red Dead 2. Someone's going to scream it at me. Freaking, oh my gosh, the guy from Red Dead 2. I'm angry at me for forgetting his name. But like those men are like really, I think like fleshed out, like father figure type esque men in video games, and they're really cool. So some call new Kratos woke because he isn't murder feasting anymore. Obviously not the case, but how would someone make that mistake? He still isn't PC. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you, and I purposely don't get into politics a lot in this channel, or basically in anything I do, only because I feel generally, in most circumstances, at least concerning my channel, Arthur Morgan, thank you. Yes, I knew I was forgetting it, but Arthur Morgan. Most cases, I feel that there is, I think, a breath of fresh air in being able to discuss narratives separate from real world politics, right? Because part of narratives and storytelling is not purely escapism, but just the ability for people of different walks of life to be able to communicate freely, no matter what their like beliefs are, like, and you can just talk about stories and conversing. And so that's why generally I don't talk about a lot of like real world politics on my channel, because I think that there is value in having spaces of being able to get to know other people, and through that knowledge of other people and being able to see the perspectives without being told it's a political view, you can then start to adopt those ideas just naturally in your mind to be able to fit into society and integrate with people, you know, better. Now, with that being said, there's a section of the internet that's just dumb, and I'm just gonna come out and say it. Like, they're just ill-educated on and they're insecure. Like, the idea that Kratos, and I promise I'm not gonna get riled up about this because I think I do actually have to go pretty soon. The idea that Kratos is woke is like a fundamental, I think, admission that people have, again, no idea what woke is, because like Kratos doesn't have a political ideology. Kratos' ideology is, I will murder you if you like hurt my son. And that's like the extent of it, right? Like it's sure he's less murderous than he was before, but there's so many people who like legitimately think, and this is like the reason I'm passionate about it is because it's a storytelling thing. There are people who think now that like a character learning mercy, and like specifically a man learning mercy is like woke. Like a dude not brutally murdering anyone he comes across and like taking considerations of like, you know, like not even pacifism, but just not being a murder machine as woke. And it's like a huge self-report. It's like, if you think that's what, like, I don't know, leftism is, or you think that's against whatever your political ideology is, like, that's like an internal battle that you need to have with yourself. Because I don't know, man, Kratos is a guy who's just always in conflict and always needs to kill and doesn't want to kill anymore. And that's pretty much like, that's what the whole story is. Like, he doesn't want his son to be like that. He wants to avenge his family, but he doesn't want to like have to kill people to do it. And you know, I don't see how that's like soft or anything. You know, like half these dudes aren't even like 1/4 of Kratos's weight, and they're trying to say stuff like this. So, and I say this as someone, and this is one of the last things that I think I'll comment on. I just think it's very funny that one of the things that I think gets commented on so much when people actually see me for the first time is that they're like, oh yeah, I thought you'd be like a 50-year-old white man, like a fat 50-year-old white dude, like sipping tea and stuff. When really I'm like a 6'4", 230-pound, like goes to the gym 5 days a week black dude. And this idea about the expression of masculinity in like modern day society and what it like, the expectation for what it can or cannot be. And the idea that you can't somehow be gentle, but also like incredibly, I think like physically intimidating or like capable. Yes, Phil, you could 1v1 Kratos. We all know it. But like, yeah, it's this weird thing, like the benchmark for where a lot of people think about masculinity, I think, informs them about what they should expect from people, which is really weird because, again, when they see me, they're like, oh, we didn't expect you to like look like you play football, because I did play football, or like basketball, play volleyball, you know, took martial arts, that kind of stuff, because apparently being like knowledgeable about storytelling and masculine at the same time and black is some incongruence. Like they just can't fit together, you know. It's super weird. And again, I won't like get super into it, but it's like a really lame part of being online is people like complaining literally about anything. I mean, more to the point that Kratos now exemplifies how evil men can become. A man can become a good. I mean, more to the point that Kratos now exemplifies how an evil man can become a good man through being a husband and a father. That's very positive for young men. Yes, no, it is. It's like the idea, and this is another topic too. Like people want some characters to just like stay evil or like stay like hyper violent, Um, but there's and again, and I feel strongly about this again because like I worked with young men when I was doing therapy work, that I think that there is a real need for like good stories about men, and role models for men, and good figures online for men. And like, I'm not trying to be some type of like global internet daddy for people who need like, you know, like intellectual masculine role models or anything like that. But also I'm just like, yeah, like if you can definitely be educated, you can be compassionate, you could be a nerd, you can be tall, you know, you could be athletic. There's nothing like masculinity doesn't need to be restricted to being like an angry, mean person that is always angry and mean. Like Kratos was a terrible father. I know he loved Calliope, but he was a terrible dad. While his children were alive, or while Calliope was alive, because he would just go out and like murder a bunch of people, and then come back, and then eventually his murderous rampage led him to kill his own child and wife, right? And eventually he learns, oh wow, because he met Calliope when he was dead, that you know, when he had Atreus, he's like, I can't be that same person anymore. So it's I don't know, the fact that this is like even a debate is kind of weird. People online are weird, but yeah. So the last thing I'll do, yes, my 24-hour fitness. Tom Baker, hi, big fan of your channel. Can you share quick on integrating themes subtly into a narrative? Working on a project and have a hard time with that. I'm not going to do this to myself. The quickest thing I can say, about integrating themes, again, you just have to have a knowledge of what your theme is. You have to know, like, what am I commenting on? And then figure out a way that the actual plot events can like fit around, right? Because if I'm commentating, like so Kill la Kill, I didn't talk about this before, but Kill la Kill is a great example. Kill la Kill is the literal kind of like sister creation to Gurren Lagann, where Gurren Lagann was a commentary about masculinity and coming of age and being a man, transitioning from a boy to a man. Kill la Kill was a huge commentary on femininity. And one of the big things about femininity is the expression of your physical self, right? So like how women dress. And a lot of times, society and just people at large create opinions about women that they see based upon how they dress, how they present themselves. And our opinions become like how we think about them on like a personal and like moralistic level. So like if a woman is wearing something, we start to think, oh, this is like the traits that they embody, right? And so Kill la Kill is all about this schoolgirl who basically gets superpowers from a very skimpy dress, and the skimpy dress is alive. It's sentient. It's called Kamui, and it almost is like daring the audience to be like a part of the subject matter, because the theme of the entire kind of like show of Kill la Kill is how we look at others, especially feminine others, and the judgments that we make and our expectations and how to like exist in society and community. Because a lot of people were like, oh, it's terrible that, you know, this character is dressed in skimpy and whatnot. But then the point of the show is actually like, why do you care? Like, why are you making moral kind of like arguments about who this person is? And of course, I am not arguing for like the sexualization of schoolgirls. But what I am saying is that I think we place a lot of value on outward appearance in the same way masculinity does, that I think Gurren Lagann talked about, which is coming of age, as we do with femininity, right? But to even make a commentary on that as a theme, you have to understand what you're trying to make a commentary on. Like, again, I'm not a woman, so like if I wanted to write a story like Kill la Kill and like would have themes like Kill la Kill, I would have to do a lot of research on how women, because like the main character's a woman, the main villain's a woman, the main villain's daughter is a woman, the main like character's best friend is a woman. Like I don't live that life. So for me to make a commentary on like femininity and feminine clothes and feminine outlooks and like feminine socialization. I couldn't do that right off the get-go because those themes are things that I had like know nothing about, right? So I would have to do like a lot of learning, a lot of listening, a lot of reading, and then create plot lines that specifically interrogate those types of things, right? So like the good guys in the story are literally nudists, right? Because in the story of Kill la Kill, they're all students and they have to wear these uniforms, and it's all about conforming to like the ideas of the society. And the main character gets this other kind of like set of clothing that gives her superpowers, but she looks really skimpy and she's not conforming to the society, right? And the nudists are like, we don't conform to the society, right? But like how I would interpret that and how, you know, just from me being here and then someone who probably, you know, took the time to write the manga, interpreted it because of their experiences are completely different, right? So it's about taking, without getting too deep into it, because I don't want to I don't want to continue to just like rile myself up to be here forever. It's about, I think, understanding your theme and who you're trying to make a commentary on, and then using that with a genuine passion and knowledge for what you're talking about. So yes, so that'll be it for me. Thank you all for like being here. So this was like 2 hours, just pretty much like, it felt really good. Again, I'll probably do this next Sunday. I'll probably try to do this every Sunday, as long as, you know, things aren't getting in the way. I'll probably also do this if I can, maybe during like a weekday too, if stuff works. So I'm gonna stop the stream now, but all of you have a great rest of your Sunday. So see ya.